The Goat House is back with score predictions and picks against the spread for every single NFL game in Week 17 here every single week, even in the playoffs. With this video, excited about these picks this week. Let's take a look at what I got. Christmas Day, Chiefs versus Steelers. This is one I'm really back and forth on. During our picks video, which is already up for this week, I picked the Steelers because it was just announced at that time that Chris Jones, obviously the Chiefs' star defensive tackle, and Jawaan Taylor, their starting tackle, were questionable. It didn't really feel like they could play, but the full injury report has come out now. Jawaan Taylor's been limited all week at practice, and then Chris Jones was limited. He was a DNP until Tuesday, limited practice. So it felt like most likely those guys would play. So I'm kind of leaning back towards the Chiefs here. The Chiefs felt really solid against the Texans last week. That's going against a good team. The Steelers' defense is different, so that's a bit of a challenge. They've been struggling allowing pressure on Mahomes this year, so TJ Watt could be a big-time problem. But so if those guys do not play, I'm going to go with the Steelers in that one. But it sounds like they could play right now. That's why it's a little tricky doing this video earlier than we normally do in the week because of the Christmas games. But Chiefs felt really good. It felt like as the year went on, it's like, yeah, they got weapons. Rashee Rice goes down. They don't have enough weapons. They get Hopkins. Okay, it's still a little underwhelming. And now Hollywood Brown's getting back in the mix, and Xavier Worthy's really coming along. It feels like they have plenty of options, and they can beat you in so many different ways. Joey Porter Jr. probably out for the Steelers, so I'll take the Chiefs. Whenever they absolutely need a score or a stop, it seems like they're able to do it. Teams are starting to game plan for this Russell Wilson offense a little bit more, but at home on Christmas, Mike Tomlin might find a way to win. It's going to be a good one. It's definitely one I would not touch because there's some injuries here that could just change things slightly. I got a 1-point squeaker right now. We'll take the Chiefs, find a way to win, probably in the end, but this is if those players that are questionable, Chris Jones, Jawaan Taylor, play. The other Christmas game, Ravens versus Texans. I'm quite confident with the Ravens in this game. The Texans are at home, wearing their alternate uniforms on Christmas, so maybe that kind of gives them a spark. Maybe they do it for Tank Dell, but as soon as Tank Dell got hurt in that game against the Chiefs, that they felt like they could have won that game, but so much emotion, and they just lost all momentum, and they just could not focus on the game, it felt like. And they're going to be missing Tank Dell out there. They're very limited with receivers, and it feels like if it's just Nico Collins, teams are just going to put a bracket on him and then make the Texans beat them in other ways. Now, Joe Mixon could do that. The Ravens are very, very solid against the run, though. The Ravens are getting better on both sides of the ball. The offense has been great the whole time. Defensively, they're getting much better. This is the time of the year where Derrick Henry goes wild. I think he runs very, very, very solid against a team he played against 2 times a year while he was at Tennessee. So I like the Ravens. This one, 27-17. The Texans do not have enough with just Nico Collins. And they have other receivers, but it feels like Nico Collins is going to have to really carry, probably while being doubled a lot, that receiver group. But could the Texans' pass rush make a difference? At first, they have to stop that run. So I like the Ravens here, 27-17. I'm leaning towards betting that 5.5. It's a little risky. They could win by 3, but I week after Tank Dell got injured, feels like the Texans are losing momentum here. Give me the Ravens by 10. Thursday night football. I do like Seattle in this one. They are going to Chicago. It'll be a little chilly, might rain, the home field advantage of the Bears, but the Bears are struggling right now. It takes them so long within the game to get going, and it feels like they've kind of given up a little bit. Not every player, but in Seattle's a pretty solid team. They played Minnesota pretty tough. I think they're pretty balanced where they're explosive on offense and they play really solid defense. That's where they're underrated. Their defense is very solid, and the Bears' offense has really struggled throughout the whole year, but especially recently. They seem to get things going late in games. I think Seattle's defense plays a very solid game. I think their running back, I'd actually say trio. I think they're going to use all 3. Saw McIntosh being used a little bit. He actually looked pretty explosive. He only had a few carries, but so I'd watch mainly for their run game, but JSN's been pretty unstoppable, and their defense, just a balance, I think, causes problems for the Bears here. So I have Seattle Seahawks winning 26-16 in Chicago, and I like them covering that 3.5. The matchup definitely favors them. I'm pretty confident the Bears will be down by a bit. Do they come back and cover that spread? Do they have enough time? It's just, when do they finally get going in the game? That's kind of the issue at Chicago. Chargers and Patriots definitely should be a defensive game. I considered the under on this one, but it was kind of a close call. And the Chargers are kind of random. Sometimes they got crazy offense going, and sometimes there's no offense. The Patriots are kind of the same way, actually. More of a defensive game. Chargers are the better team. The Patriots, Drake May's playing great. I'm very optimistic about his future. They can't really close games out right now. They definitely need more talent. So the Chargers got a little bit of a spark after beating the Broncos. So maybe they can get some things going. I like them to win this game 23-17. The key will be playing defense, tough defense and running the football. Harbaugh knows how to win those types of games. Chargers usually take care of business in the type of games where they're just the better team, plain and simple. Huge game here. Playoffs on the line when it comes to Broncos versus Bengals. I like the Broncos in this game. It is kind of a 50-50 up in the air. A lot of people rolling with the Bengals. They are favored by 3.5. I like the Broncos plus 3.5. Should be a really close game. Either way, the issue with the Broncos, a couple things. Smaller thing. Bo Nix maybe starting to come back down to earth a little bit, throwing some interceptions. Got to take care of the football in this one. He's playing a weaker defense. Take care of business. Make plays. Don't give the other team the ball. But mainly, the Broncos' defense is declining right now. It was fantastic for most of the year, and it's dropping off looking at the last few or more weeks, and they're playing a very explosive offense. Key matchups, Surtain versus Jamar Chase. The Broncos aren't going to be no one's in man coverage 100% of snaps, so it won't be those guys one-on-one the whole time, but I'm very curious how they divvy that up, really, with the coverages, so that'd be a key matchup, but the Bengals will make plays. Where are the Broncos defense at? Where are they at right now? That's the big question. What I do know about the Bengals defense is they're not good. This is a very bad defense, and I think Sean Payton's team will take care of business, could control the clock, and they'll score some points. I got an absolute shootout in this one, though, because we know the Bengals will score, so I trust both offenses. I like the Bengals offense a lot more, but I like the Broncos defense a lot more, even though it's declining. I just do not trust the Bengals defense. And maybe a weird take about the Bengals, I was a little more impressed with them while they were losing, if that makes any sense at all. Look at the Ravens games, the Chargers game. It's like, God, they did enough to win. They're so good. Like, how are they not winning these games? And they play the Cowboys, and they just get by, due to a botched block punt, whatever the hell that was. Titans game, even Burrow was like, we suck. We sucked. Like, they were sloppy in that game. It's the Titans. And the Browns, it's like you felt like they could have won by 30, but they just couldn't really. Maybe they were taking it easy and getting ready for this game, but the Broncos are a much better team than those teams that they've been playing. So I'm going to trust the Broncos, mainly because I do not trust the Bengals defense in this one. I think Denver will do just enough in an absolute shootout, 30-28 here. So I'll take the Broncos plus 3.5. If they lose, it's going to stay 3 or closer. It's really going to come. It could be a 1-point game. It's going to come down to the very end, I think. And the over seems to make sense here with both these defenses declining. And their offense is very, very capable. So this should be one of the more fun games of the week, and it is on Saturday, so I cannot wait for that one. The last of the Saturday games actually could be a very interesting one. Cardinals versus Rams. I'll tell you why it's going to be interesting. If the Rams somehow let this one slip away, say the Seahawks take care of business against the Bears, next week, Seahawks versus Rams, huge game for the NFC West title. The league would actually love for that to happen. It'd be very interesting next week, Seahawks versus Rams. So that's something to monitor. But the Cardinals are pretty beat up right now. Actually, right before, a little bit ago, actually, the 2 tackles for the Cardinals were put on IR. So that makes me wonder, could the Rams win this a little easier? James Conner, does he play? If he doesn't play, I'd probably increase the margin of victory for the Rams here. But I think this game's just bound to be interesting. Saturday night for a reason. The playoffs could be on the line, and the NFC West could be on the line with, not the Cardinals, but the Rams and the Seahawks. As long as the Seahawks win on Thursday before this could be interesting here. So I'll say it's a little closer. I think the Cardinals play decent defense in this one. The over-under was set at 47.5. That just feels too high for me. Maybe there's a chance where it's kind of close like this. It doesn't hit the over. There's a chance where the Rams do their part in hitting the over, but the Cardinals do not. So I don't see how it goes over the 47.5, so I'd keep that under. But this could be interesting if the league wants it to be. If the league wants the NFC West to be a title game next week between the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. So actually an interesting game on Saturday. Make sure to check out our weekly pick show for Week 17. We were laughing our asses off, so make sure to check that out. But the Jets and the Bills, AFC East matchup here. Bills are favored by a whopping 10. It's a lot. The Jets have been playing teams tough, and the Bills are a lot better than them. They'll take care of business at home in this game. I got them winning 31-23, but I think the Jets' offense will be fairly decent, but the Bills will just do enough. I feel like it's going to go over 46.5. We know the Bills will be scoring. The Jets' defense is declining as the year goes on. They're a little beat up as well, not carrying as much anymore. The Bills, their explosive offense, they will score. And again, the Jets been a little explosive, especially recently. Maybe not so much the Rams game, but looking at the other weeks there. And the Bills' defense isn't the greatest in the world, so I think the Jets will score. 31-23 Bills, and I like the over of 46.5. Raiders and Saints. This is another one I'm monitoring some injuries for. That's why it's tough. I usually do this video on Wednesday. I had to record it Tuesday night because of Christmas and the Christmas games. But will Derek Carr play against the Raiders? That would be great for him. I think he would want to, but probably not. That actually won't decide my pick here. Could decide my score. But will Kamara play? So if Carr and Kamara are out, am I leaning towards the Raiders here? But Kamara could play this game. I think there's more fight in the Rizzy Saints. I think he wants to win games. The Raiders are kind of like, I'm sure they're going to go out there and try to win, but no Max Crosby still, obviously. The Saints' defense is starting to decline, obviously, but that's more so against the run. The Raiders are the worst team running the football, so there really isn't a problem that is presented there for the Saints defense, like a massive issue for them. Just kind of deal with Brock Bowers, which is tough to do. It's about it. But in the Saints, if Kamara plays, will do just enough here. I think they'll have a little more fight, and they'll win 17-16, a squeaker. But if Kamara and Carr are out, Carr we expect to be out. But then I might lean towards the Raiders there. So a little bit of a tough one. Definitely one to pass on. No one's dying to bet on a game like that anyways. Colts versus Giants. I got the Colts winning 24-13. Indy's playing a little better on defense, and they're pretty explosive on the ground with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson there. So that'll be a problem for the Giants, especially JT, as he keeps rolling here after the mistake he made 2 weeks ago. Was really rolling at his best game ever against the Titans last week, and he obviously plays them 2 times a year. But Colts, 24-13, I would use them, betting them they should cover the 8, but that's always risky. That's a big spread. It's risky. But if you want to pair them like in a parlay or a teaser, Colts minus 2.5 feels pretty damn good there. So Colts win by 11 is what I got. Cowboys and Eagles, a little tricky because Jalen Hurts in concussion protocol. Will he get out of it? We'll see. I still like the Eagles to win the game, actually, because their running game. That's the Cowboys' weakness. I feel like if the Bucs just ran the ball more, look at what Bucky Irving was doing every time he touched the ball. Cowboys are really good against the pass, and they will be if Kenny Pickett's at quarterback, but they will not be able to stop the run. The Eagles are a team that's not going to forget to run the ball like a team like the Bucs. So they'll run the ball. They'll control the clock. 9.5 seems like a bit. Of course, it definitely could happen if everybody plays for the Eagles and they're full go the whole game. But I'll go 27-20 here, Philly, as they control the game on the ground, therefore control the clock. But because of, Hurts being injured, and I wouldn't really touch this game right now. Panthers and Bucks, the last time they played, they went to overtime. The Panthers actually just won a game in overtime last week, but they lost to the Bucks in overtime last time they played, which wasn't too long ago. I'll take the Bucks, high-scoring game, 30-26. 8-point spread seems like a bit. The Bucs ran all over them last time. They should do that again. They should run more than they did last time. They should definitely run more than they did last week. That was the mistake. Bad play calling there. But they'll run the ball. They'll take care of business. But I think Bryce Young plays a solid game here. 30-26. Tampa is what I got, but could be an interesting one. It is interesting because the Falcons control their own destiny, but the Bucs have the same record as them. Bucs got to take care of business here. And they got to hope the Falcons lose, and then they got to take care of business next week. So this could get interesting there. Could get sticky. Titans-Jags battle between two terrible teams. It's a 50-50 game here. I'll go with the Titans. The Jags beat them in a close one, defensive game just a few weeks ago. You could argue the Titans outplayed them in that game. They moved the ball, I don't want to say fairly easy, but they moved the ball, but then they just couldn't score. They kept turning it over on downs near the goal line in the red zone. I think they'll finish drives this week, with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. And Brian Callahan might be coaching for his job, actually. It could be a one-and-done situation there. So I think they'll just get by on this one, but it's a 50-50 game. Could go either way. I like they got Tyjae Spears going, I like how they got Okonkwo going. Maybe that's the difference, getting those guys going, something a little different than last time, and they squeak by 19-17. Dolphins and Browns, 24-13, Dolphins, big win. We got to monitor who's playing quarterback for the Browns. DTR was bad. He's a little beat up. Do they just go with Zappy, or do they throw Winston back in there who was inactive? They didn't want no part of him last game. They just want to maybe try some other guys, maybe tank at the same time. So I'm kind of curious. Now, Njoku's beat up. Obviously, Chubb's already out for the year, so just kind of curious what they go at quarterback, but it feels like they have given up. You think the line, 6.5. Why is it like that? Why is it so low? Because the Dolphins cannot play in the cold, but every time they've had to play in the cold, it's been against a really, really good team. The Browns are not a really good team. They're a very bad team who's probably going to have a bad quarterback in there, and they have given up, and the Dolphins are playing much better defense right now, where even if it's Winston, they can take the ball away. So here's an opportunity to jump on a line that is low just because the Dolphins historically with this team cannot play in the cold. They'll be fine in this game. So I like them winning by 11 points here, covering that 6.5 is a pretty solid bet. Again, their defense is playing much better. Their offense will do just enough. Packers and Vikings, big rival game. This is a big one. Big one for both teams, but mainly the Vikings, because if they win this game, next week when they play the Lions, that is the NFC North Championship game. The winner not only wins the division, but they get the 1 seed. That's if the Vikings win this game. So it's a big one for Minnesota. They're at home. Packers are scary right now, though. They're playing really good football. I'm a Vikings fan. Typically, they lose this game when they absolutely need to win. And at the end of the year, playing the Packers usually demolish them. A couple things here, though. I mean, the Packers are scary. It's a team I at least want to play right now as a Vikings fan. And they're playing them right now. And the Packers definitely could win. But a couple things. This Vikings team just feels different. Something about them feels different. They'll probably choke at some point. Could be this game. But it feels different. Also, one other thing. The Packers are winning with a bit of everything right now. They're playing great in every phase with the running games really getting them going. Vikings do a really good job stopping the run. Who wins that battle? But I'm thinking the league is dying to get an NFC North title game next week between the Lions and the Vikings. Sunday Night Football, I'd imagine it would be. So if this game's kind of close in the end, what happens there? Things could get sketchy a little bit. Just a prediction. I've seen it happen before. So everyone kind of wants the Vikings-Lions title game next week. So we'll go with that. Minnesota at home. This is in Lambeau in the cold. I would have to go with the Packers here, but they could definitely still win this game. But we'll go Minnesota 26-24, a good one here. Definitely would not touch it. I could see multiple different scenarios. These games kind of could get weird. Falcons and Commanders, huge game. Huge game for the Falcons. They control their own destiny in the NFC South with the Buccaneers tied record, but the Falcons have the tiebreaker with them because they won both times. So they just got to win out here, but it's a tough one against the Commanders. Commanders are tough to figure out right now because they're a little sloppy at times, but they're still winning. You know, they beat the Eagles. They come from behind, even though they turn the ball over a ton. They kind of been barely getting by, even the Saints game. But sometimes the offense shows up, sometimes the defense, sometimes both. So they're a little tricky here. The Falcons are kind of tricky too because is Penix's offense a tough game plan? How will he play in this one? The defense actually has been playing better because they've been getting more pressure on the quarterback. So this is a weird one. I'm predicting less scoring than people think probably here. The under, but we could also see this being an explosive offensive outing for both teams or the Commanders, so it's a little bit tricky of one, but I'm thinking a little bit more defense. 23-20 Commanders, a must-win for the Falcons, so they cover the spread, but in Washington, Sunday Night Football, or in D.C., Sunday Night Football, just a little bit more explosiveness for the Commanders. They find a way to win here. But this is a strange game that could be very unpredictable how it actually goes. I'm really looking forward to that one here. And then Monday Night Football could be a little bit of a trap game in San Francisco, prime time. The Niners are out. They could play spoiler. We see that all the time. Niners are definitely a team that's capable of doing that. Brock Purdy's been struggling with the Lions defense because it's been so beat up, has really been struggling, especially through the air against the pass. So this is a chance for Purdy to prove something and gain that contract, a richer contract, get things going. And the Lions could be looking ahead to that Vikings game next week, depending, like say the Vikings win, they already know on Monday night, they could be going, all right, that's a championship game for the 1 seed. They could be looking ahead, and then things can happen. I'd say Dan Campbell's group probably wouldn't do that. They would just take care of business, but I think that's why the line is surprisingly low, -3. They're probably thinking the same thing. 3 is pretty low, though. The Niners are really beat up. The season's lost, and the Lions are going to go. I feel like that's a team that's going to go full go no matter what. So we'll have them, I wouldn't bet it, just covering the spread there. So it's where things get weird in a game like this at this time of the year or so. Purdy out to prove something, though. Could be a high-scoring game, 28-24. Lions win. And then will we get that NFC North title game? We may not. The Packers might spoil everything. They're playing great football right now. So Lions actually rooting for them. They beat them twice. But then there's kind of a rundown of all the picks against the spread. I have the Steelers +3. Either with the injuries or not. We're still monitoring some injuries, and that game's coming up too. Either way, I wouldn't bet it, but Steelers +3. I like the Ravens -5.5. Texans a little down after the Tank Dell injury. Seattle -3.5. I like, even though it's at sloppy Soldier Field. Chargers -4. Wouldn't touch that one because it could be a defensive game. Broncos +3.5. I had them winning the game. That could be interesting. It should stay close. Cardinals wouldn't touch that one. Still waiting for some injuries there. Jets +10. It's a lot. It's a big spread. Jets playing teams tough. Saints monitoring some injuries, but they could win that game against the Raiders. Colts -8. Cowboys plus 9.5. Is Hurts playing? That's a big spread, though. Panthers plus 8. I'm surprised that's high. That is that high. Titans plus 1. Just kind of got to win that game. Dolphins minus 6.5. I like. It's a little scary because it's cold. Vikings minus 1. Wouldn't touch it. Could go either way. Falcons plus 4. I think that game's got to stay close. But both those teams are still like, what are we going to get every week from those teams? And the Lions-Niners game, like we just talked about, could be a trap. It could be a thing where things get weird because we're looking ahead, and it's an interesting game, I guess, on Monday Night Football there. So there you have it for the score predictions for Week 17. Had to do this one a little bit early, so it was a little tougher with all the injuries. And, of course, the lines could change when I normally do it on Wednesdays. But the Christmas games being on, Christmas on Wednesdays kind of pushed everything a little earlier. But check out all of our content. We have a recent free agency video if you're interested in that. We have loads of content every single week and always more to come, especially in the offseason free agency, the draft. We got you. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.